my name is Kaycee Jones, and I am the 4-H Youth Program Advisor for Haakon and Jackson Counties. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the club resource boxes that my secretary and I put together to, well, serve as a resource for our club leaders. So you might ask why. We recognize that you guys are busy as club leaders. We had some new clubs. We were trying to get some new leaders. And then we were also wanting to be able to improve our youth leadership opportunities at the club level. And so, we recognize that trying to be a good leader, keep up with deadlines, read the newsletter, plan activities for meetings can sometimes feel like you are on that runaway craziness like Cruella. So we wanted to be able to help you guys. We understand that to be able to have a good club meeting, that we want to educate. We recognize that educational power is important, and that there needs to be hands-on, age-appropriate things, that we still have fun, but we don't compromise education for that. We know that 4-H isn't like normal school, and it isn't that like formal education piece. So they don't come for those like lectures and wanting to be that really formal education piece, but we want to make it hands-on and have that fun element as we are learning things, kind of that sneaky learning, if you will. We recognize that we do have that learn by doing mentality and motto. We want to empower youth to take on that leadership role like we talked about earlier. And that is part of the reason why we honestly created these, is that you could say, hey, junior leader, we want you to lead the next activity at the club meeting. And whether you give that to them, the club meeting ahead of time, or if you're kind of in a pinch and say, hey, can you do that this meeting? We wanted to be able to set them up for that success. And having all the materials prepared, the young person would only have the requirement of practicing that teaching. And maybe you're like the guy on this meme, you're like, wait, what? We need an activity for a club meeting? It really does provide that education, that fun, and is an opportunity to empower the youth. So that leads us into what's in the box. We included some STEM activities, visual arts activities, as well as some service learning ideas. And we'll talk a little bit through each of the STEM lessons to begin with. So our paper building blocks, this is actually an activity that Rebecca, my secretary, had done with some of the students and youth she used to nanny. And so what you will need are strips of construction paper, either construction paper or cardstock does tend to work best. They're a little more durable. We cut them into 1/2 inch by 3 inch pieces, some tape and scissors. For the instructions, if you want to have these already done in your office, or if you're a club leader looking to put something like this together, you measure them, that 1/2 inch by 3 inch sections. If you want to get real wild, you can actually let the youth do this as well. Then you're going to fold them into 1 inch strips. Or 1 inch little segments, and then we'll stack. So you can see that here in a second. So you fold that over 3 1 inch little deals, and then you tape them into little triangles, and you're able to stack them and build them. So within that, you think about your 4-H project areas. This would be a child development activity. And then you also could do it as a challenge for your club members to see who could stack them the highest, who could do carry the most weight, all sorts of different little STEM challenges that you could do there. And as far as like child development, I think it would be something that would be very appropriate to have in a babysitting bag, or also if you are looking for in that project, if you wanted to do a poster talking about some different STEM challenges that you could do for young people. So super easy, super inexpensive. Again, we know that budgets are sometimes really tight or even non-existent for club projects. And so this is something that you could do. I think it's really fun. I've done it with the after school group. They enjoyed it. I think anytime you can add challenges to things, it makes it fun. The next one is Eminem color chromatography. This is one of the things that I found on the internet and actually have done with the 4-H after school group here in Phillip, and we did it with the Kadoka after school 21st century program and did lots of lessons on chromatography. And if you're interested in some more lessons on those, just let me know. I would be happy to share. The one that we really liked was this candy chromatography. You can utilize M&Ms or Skittles. You'll need a paper plate, water, pipette or syringe. And if you don't have those, you can make it work otherwise. Paper towels cut into 1-inch strips. I did find the brand name paper towel tends to work a little bit better just because it does pull that water up versus like the really inexpensive ones that you might find at your courthouse bathroom. A clear cup of pencil. Pencils are needed instead of pen just because the pens will run up, and actually you can do chromatography on different black pens if you're interested, or markers if you're interested in that, and then a ruler. So some background information that's kind of handy to know. Chromato is actually the root word meaning color, and graphy obviously indicates writing. And the reason it started was because artists needed to know how to create dyes for textiles, and using those individual pigments, they needed to separate those out from a mixture. The process utilizes that capillary action, and each component of the mixture would be carried up different distances. So larger molecules move slower, whereas those smaller molecules will move faster, and the larger ones will reach their stationary phase faster. So we'll look through that, and we can talk about that here in just a few moments. And within each of those stationary phases is where you find the distinct bands of color. Some modern uses that we see are the creation of vaccines, and that helps determine which antibodies fight off various diseases and illnesses. Food testing, we want to make sure that all of the food leaving a plant or a facility is the same, so that quality assurance piece. So for example, Coca-Cola could use this to make sure that each of their drink batches come out the same. Drug testing, determining what substances are in the bloodstream, and then forensic testing. A lot of you might have seen this on like CSI or one of those types of shows. Sometimes they call it that gas chromatography, and they're used, also known as mass spectrometry, as the words are hard today, mass spectrometry. We'll just move on. And that helps determine what different elements are within a given sample. So kind of cool. You can do this on a very basic level and talk about how, if we want to do that career exploration, it might be used on a lot larger scale and a lot more specific, and need to do the same things over and over as far as for your information to come out correct. So this gets us into our experiment. You can see on the furthest left one is where we have taken that paper plate. We're using our pipette to squeeze out some water onto there, and then you place the M&M or Skittle onto that water. And what we're doing is taking all of the color off of there. You'll leave it like that for about 5 minutes, and then you'll flip it over and allow more of the color to run off. So when you get done, you'll just basically have the M&M or the Skittle where the insides are still there, but all of the outside coloring has come off. Then it'll be time to put together your Bounty paper towel or your other name brand paper towel. You want to take that strip of paper towel, which is about a 1/2 inch, and then using your pencil and your ruler, mark up about a 1/2 inch, draw a line across, and then you'll put that dot of that condensed color onto there. We'll allow it to dry for a little bit. In this time, you can either conduct your club meeting, or if you're done with that club meeting, maybe play some type of an activity just to give it about 5 minutes to dry. You can do it when it's still wet. It's just the results vary a little bit, especially depending on what color of M&M you find. From there, after it's dried a little bit, you're going to have about a 1/4 inch of water into the bottom of your cup. You want to make sure that dot doesn't submerge under the water, but that the bottom of the paper towel does, because again, we're using that capillary refill action to be able to lift that water up the paper towel. As you can see in the third picture, that's what's actually happening, is that water is moving up the paper towel. And then in the fourth picture, you will see that not only has that moved up, but you can see those distinct bands. You can see the distinct band of blue, meaning those blue molecules are smaller. And then there's some yellow and Oswald's green. It's a little hard to see in this picture. It's a lot better in person. One step that I did miss, and I apologize for that, is when you go to put that paper towel into the cup, it's nice to have a piece of tape taped around a pencil, or you can just lean it up against the side. The benefit of having that pencil is that you can not have the color potentially get onto the cup, whereas if it's suspended and hanging off of that side, you know that all of that color is transferring up your paper towel. If you want to take this a little bit further and you don't want to just say, hey, yep, look, really cool, the color moves, which is totally fine, and it makes a really great lesson. This is actually what we did on most of our lessons. We left it here. But if you do want to calculate the RF factor, which is the retention factor, and it just gives that ratio of distance traveled by each component compared to the entire travel by the solvent, this is what you can do. So when you take that piece of paper towel out of the cup, you'll mark how far the water went up, again, using that pencil. Then you're going to allow it to dry. I know sometimes this drying time is the hardest time because there's not a defined activity to do, but this is where you could utilize those junior leaders again to have them go forth and do an activity. Once it's dried, you're going to measure from that first line there where you had the dot of color up to the line that you just drew for how far the solvent went. And then you're going to measure how far the yellow went, how far the green went, how far the blue went, and then you'll divide the color the yellow went by the total color distance that the water moved, and that'll give you your RF factor. Again, not necessary, but it's something that if you want to take this lesson a little bit further, you can add in that like math element. Good news, bad news on this, there's no clear 4-H project, but it would make a really great county-based presentation, especially if for that junior leader, it could fall into some of our science categories. But again, it's not a super clear way that you're like, yeah, this is exactly how I'm going to enter it into the fair. But most of our counties do have those county-based options. Then we'll go into some of our simple circuits. This lesson is kind of adapted from one that is on our 4-H STEM page, and I will put that in the chat at the end that you can find that for those simple circuits. The reason we had to adapt it a little bit and use this plan is that some of the materials, specifically the plastic boards, we couldn't find in our community, but I had a lot of file folders. So this is what kind of we did. So you'll see you'll need some Christmas lights. If anybody has old Christmas lights that maybe all the lights aren't working, this is a great use for those, or maybe some of them have just stopped working. And we'll learn a little bit, maybe some of those aren't working anymore as you do this lesson. A file folder, some tape, aluminum foil, D battery, and again, this is based off that STEM design on a dime, which you can find on the extension website, and I'll put that in the chat at the end of the time. So how we go through and do this, we have to prepare the lights, and it's really simple. You just take a pair of scissors and cut the lights apart. Then you're going to need some wire strippers to actually strip that wire. Most of your hardware stores have those, and a lot of our offices actually have those because we've done these lessons from time to time. You can have the young people strip the wires, or you can do that ahead of time. Either way, it just depends. Then you're going to create your circuit. You can do a simple circuit, which you can see on the left of the picture here. How you do that is you take those strips of aluminum foil. You want to cut them about a 1/2 inch. And I just do whatever width our aluminum foil is, and then it's easy to tear. You will tape it down and making sure that where those pieces of aluminum foil connect, that they aren't grounded out by the tape, which is an insulator. So we want to make sure the aluminum foil is together with other aluminum foil. Then you will take the end of your Christmas light and wrap it with the aluminum foil. Again, making sure that when we tape that down, we're not insulating it and grounding it out to our circuit board, AKA the file folder. And the nice thing about this is as you give these directions, the kids will start doing this activity. And I can say that because I've done it several times with after school. I've done it several times with different school groups, and invariably they start doing it as you're talking about these instructions. So sometimes they get it right the first time, and other times they get to learn by doing and see where they have those gaps in their stuff. So I always recommend having one already made so you can say, yeah, look, it does work. You just have to make sure you're not grounded out somewhere. Then the one on the left is that simple circuit. As long as those electrons are able to flow from the positive to the negative in that loop, the lights will turn on. If for some reason things are grounded, or if the loop is broken, so those electrons can't flow, then you're going to have them, again, experiment. Ask them, what are some things that you think might be causing this? Where are those areas that those electrons might stop flowing? Also check your batteries, because I've had that be the problem too. So pro tip there for you. Then you can actually do a series circuit. I guess technically, if we want to look at it, that one on the left is a series circuit since it does have multiples. And then then we can do the parallel circuit, which is the one you see on the right, where those electrons can flow either way. So if you unplug one of those lights, the other one will still work. Whereas if you unplug the light on the left, it'll stop working. So most of us, if we have Christmas lights that stop working, it's because they're that series one. And once one of those lights burn out or become unusable, then those electrons won't flow, and thus all of the lights don't work. Whereas if you have a parallel circuit for your Christmas lights, they'll continue working. Just something kind of fun to think about. I love this activity because, well, yes, it seems like there's quite a few directions. The reality is it's really fun to watch that light bulb moment, both for the light bulb to actually turn on, but also for the young person to be like, man, this is what I created. So it's a great activity. Again, Christine Wood and her group on that STEM Design on a Dime have some other ways of doing this. We just use that file folder as our circuit board because of the fact we didn't have the plastic elements. So our 4-H project that does fall under electricity, it would be a great presentation or even a poster talking about different types of circuits. You could do that. It would be super low cost. And then it would also be where if it did have some damage at achievement days or through the moving process, it wouldn't be terribly difficult for the young person to resolve that. Moving more into our visual arts types things, we did these construction murals. All it takes is some construction paper and glue sticks. They are to tear, imagine, and create. And so you might be creative to the level that you can make the bird on the right, or you might be more like me where your bird is more like on the left. But either way, it really just encourages that inspiration, thinking of things in a different manner, and trying to create something new. So with those, you could obviously do those as a visual arts paper. But I think it's kind of fun to turn it into more of a community service project of making them into cards and taking those to the nursing home or sending them to service members, thinking of people in your community that might really appreciate just a handwritten card from a 4-H member. And I think sometimes it's nice to have those cards that aren't just generic cards, but they can tell they've had some extra love put into them. That does lead us into our service learning ideas. And we always think about the fact that our 4-H pledge does pledge our hands to that larger service element. Again, we have those cards that you can do a make and take or make alongside. So actually taking that, if your nursing home is where they allow people in, making them there with the residents and having that one-on-one time. I know that we have been using part of our time at the 4-H after school in Phillip to actually go to our nursing home or to the resident care facility, and the joy that you can see in the residents as we come through, and even if it's something as little as just bringing a card that we already made, but getting to visit with them and visit with the residents and our young people visiting with them, and those connections that are made are really a lot of fun. So I would encourage you, if that's an opportunity, to do that. Park cleanup. I know that it's starting to get nice out, and sometimes our parks have been worse for the wear, but I think it's sometimes a really easy thing to do. And then assisting with a community garden. I know that some of our different communities, I know Jenny up in Meade County, they have a huge community garden, but maybe this could be an opportunity for your club to maybe just start some seeds, help with the community garden, whether that be weeding it or just going and watering. So those are some other opportunities of service learning we just suggested. And then our 2022 state community services at community school supply drive. And so this might be an opportunity for clubs to put some type of supply drive together, whether that work with existing school supply drives in your area or starting their own. So there's another opportunity. If you want more information on that, I know that Hillary and the group that works on that service learning project has put together a great resource that your local offices have access to. So if you need those, go definitely talk to your local office. So questions, since I'm doing this by myself, I doubt there are any, but if you have questions, feel free to email me, kaycee.jones@sdstate.edu, and I would love to help you out with that. And let me quickly grab the link to those STEM options, and I will put that in the chat.